It's episode 30 of the Improv London podcast with this week's guest, Brendan Way.
This ain't gonna be easy.
Somebody's moving around the town.
Welcome to episode 30. I'm your host, Stuart Moses. Don't forget you can follow this podcast on Twitter via @ImprovLondon and on Facebook via facebook.com/ImprovLondon. I had a great time talking to Brendan. We talk about all sorts of things, including how he got started in improv, about the nights he organises, Bracket Racket and Duck Duck Goose, and the groups to which he belongs, the Parentheticals and improdyssey. Brendan Way, welcome to the Improv London podcast. Yay!
Once more with enthusiasm.
I do the A's on my own. Yay!
I'm not showing myself, that sounds vain.
Oh, right, okay, fair enough. How are you?
I'm good. Delighted to be asked. So early in my improv career.
Yes. So, what would you say that got you started in the world of improv?
Well, looking back, essentially everything I've done has been a form of improv. Back when I was a kid at 7, I was in a group for 11 years, a local community theatre, a devised theatre, it was called All Out. And the scripts would be written by adults, but the kids would do some prepared improvisation beforehand, and from that they take their ideas. I was really into I'm Sorry, Read That Again, because my dad would play it in the car, and so whenever he rang up, I'd do a monologue at the top of the call. And then it was only really in uni when I did drama at Winchester, and one of the modules was improvisation, and I was in a play and they needed someone, and I saw this guy when we did improv, and he was really good, and he ended up being my comedy partner for the next few years, and I continue to work with him, and we now present at Duck Duck Goose.
So his name would be?
Dan Luxton.
Hooray!
At Dan Scrooge.
Excellent, that's going to make my show notes a lot easier.
Yeah, edit that bit out.
No, that's very helpful, that is.
You could just email it after.
That would be very helpful. I don't like to ask, people are busy.
I'm rarely busy. I'm one of those lucky bastards who can work part-time and then have the day free and then go to improv in the evening.
Living the dream.
Yeah, because you previously discussed with Jack Black whether if you had no job, would you have loads of energy? And I can confirm that you do have a bit of energy, but you still need to click in and snap in when you get to the show and still warm up.
Yes, because I often think that I would be a really good improviser if I didn't actually have to go to work all day beforehand. But then maybe I wouldn't, and I'm just lying to myself.
Well, I went to work yesterday, and it was a Duck Duck Goose day yesterday, because that's every Monday, and I was busy, and my feet hurt from a long shift, and then snapped in Duck Duck Goose, one of the best shows all round. Jammers were great, it was bank holiday, jammers were great. I've just revealed what day it was. It was a non-specific Monday.
No, it's fine, it's fine.
The jammers were great, the acts were great, all-round good show. So even though I was at work, it didn't affect me at all.
Right,
You just get a good packed room and a vibe, and that's all you need.
Yes. No, I've long resigned to myself the fact that if I wait till I'm at optimum fitness, then I will never actually do anything, because I suspect my optimum fitness is a myth.
Yeah, well, I talked to comedy writers and they said, oh, I wrote all my best stuff in my 20s and they're like 30s. It's like, okay, you really think that's it for you? Oh, well, give up the dreams.
So tell me more about your comedy part there.
Yeah, sure. We were in more plays together. We started podcasts. We like to pretend we were on Radio 4. So we both presented our own shows. And his show was a version of Whose Line Is It Anyway, but with his own games.
Wow.
And we were opposite team captains, and we roped in someone that we knew to host.
Are these podcasts still online?
They are online at YouTube because SoundCloud has a limited capacity if you don't pay for it.
We'll put the link in the show notes.
The show's Little Imps.
Little Imps, right, okay.
Yeah, so we did 4 episodes and a Christmas special, and that was 2013. And then when I went to London for an internship and then moved there, I remembered one of the we co-hosted a stand-up night, the Late Train Comedy Night at Winchester. I don't know if they have Twitter. and one of the comedians we liked a lot, Max Dickins. That's Dickins with INS for some reason. At Max Dickins. I'm going to quit this game just in case I get someone's tag wrong.
Is that the Max Dickins, or is that a different Max Dickins?
Well, he teaches at Hoopla.
Right.
So
Max,
I asked. Yeah.
I consider him the Max Dickins.
Yeah. Well, with that surname spelling, he probably is unique. So I remembered he did improv, and I tried out stand-up. I tried out sketch with Dan. Neither of us, our hearts weren't really in it.
So okay, let's break that down. What did you do when you were trying to stand up?
I did one-liners and puns.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah. Ironically, I couldn't improvise. I learnt it. I was too much like an actor. I learnt it like a script. I couldn't deviate if someone had distracted me. And then Dan and I wrote sketches, but we never really wrote together. We wrote separately, and then would edit each other's sketches, and that was it.
So did you ever perform them, or?
Yeah, no, we performed it at the night that we would host.
Right, yes.
But we did like script in hand. Like his inspiration is Punt and Dennis. I was more Mitchell and Webb. He wants to go into radio dramas. I just wanted to work in the vague area of comedy. And so suddenly it was like, oh, improv's this thing I've not tried. I asked Max what his school was, so I went to Hoopla in February 2015, which apparently I've talked to a lot of improvisers, and that's when they started committing. Like Chris Mead, like dropped down from one day less at work to do improv teaching more. Ella Sims got back into it, and at Hoopla I met 14 people. No, I met 10 people. There was 13 in the Hoopla course, but some dropped out. And then we all liked each other significantly enough that we did a second course together, both with Chris Mead. And then from there on, we decided, shall we form a group? And this is the key to sticking together after your Hoopla course or any course. Is we just met in the same place, the Theatre Delhi, which will unfortunately die at the end of June, which will make every improviser homeless, essentially. The amount of people I bump into there.
Yes. No, it's very nice. I wish I could just go there and just sort of hang out, because I see like loads of people I know and having like a chat,
just
stuff
hang
like
in a little
that.
in the corridor.
Did they like that? Did they like just people go, oh, I'm not going to use a room, I'm just going to sit in reception and chat. Is that all right?
Is that free, dude? So we met. We liked Wednesdays. We stuck to Wednesdays. We stuck to Theatre Delhi, and we haven't stopped meeting since.
That's really interesting, because I was thinking about that actually, and I was thinking because I'm doing a musical improvisation course with Maria Peters and Phil Lund at the moment, and I'm thinking, right, okay. So is the key to carrying on with that group of people? Well, you just answered the question. It's like, same place, same time, you just sort of carry on.
Yeah, what also helped is we've had since in the last year we've been together 2 AGMs. We had an AGM pretty much straight off the bat deciding, do we like this group of people to hang, and is the aim to learn how to do improv? Is it to perform together? And so you've all got to be on the same page, because we could have stayed as friends and not improv together, or we could have just met every week to improv and just get better and then do nothing with it.
I mean, that's really interesting, is taking that time to define what you want from the group and what the expectations are. And I think that's really interesting, because then, some people might think, well, I like all the people in the group, but that's not actually for me.
Yeah, and no, we started out as 14, and one person has since left because they didn't like performing anymore. Someone's on hiatus because they've got a packed schedule and they can't fit it in. And everyone's got various levels of commitment. I'm doing improv 3 nights a week. One of our guys, Ollie, is a father of twins. He obviously has less time to commit. But that's okay. Some people I'll expect to see every week. Some people it's a pleasure when they turn up.
So where did the AGM kind of idea, or just the idea of being really specific about what you were trying to achieve, come from?
Oh, good question. I don't remember the answer. I assume it was, how do we keep doing this because we love it so much? Right.
But what I find interesting is that you kind of actually didn't just sort of carry on. You actually sort of said, right, which I think is brilliant. This is kind of what we're aiming to do. I think that's really interesting.
Well, we also needed focus. It's like, well, now Chris Mead isn't teaching us anymore. What do we do? So we had to find coaches, and before you have coaches, you need to define what you wanted to do as a group or as a collective. We've had a bunch of coaches since Chris. Liam Brennan from Science of Living Things, Mark Rawle from Science of Living Things, Conor Jatter, Tom Webster, RH Experience, great, lovely group. They're all lovely, the RH, one of my favourites. We've got, at the moment, John Akerview from the rebranding, and but my favourite at the moment is Mike Hutchison, who's doing our spin-off group, Improdyssey, which is 10 of us, or at the moment 8 of us, doing a narrative quest.
Oh, okay. All right. We'll come back to them.
Sure.
Let's talk about... you haven't named your main group yet.
Oh, yeah. Okay. The Parentheticals. And that was part of the AGM, is like, it's really difficult to name an improv group because they can be literally anything. It really does not matter. Like the RH Experience, they cannot remember what the RH stands for.
I have often wondered that. I've never actually spoken to any of them yet. I'd
long
love to, but
since been forgotten. It's time.
I imagine it's Richard Herring.
That'd be lovely.
Right.
Even though he's not part of the group.
Well, no, but the Richard Herring Experience, that could be a thing.
I mean, it's probably Richard's next podcast. He makes so many. In our AGM, we had lots of dumb names, like... I don't seem like the first drafts people have when they devise a sketch show. So what was like Hotel Chocolate, there was something involving frog. One, we almost went with Marjorie's Jackals, which was...
That sounds like it's an anagram or something.
It was an in-joke from a scene we'd done like a few weeks ago, but the problem with that is not everyone had been in that room, and you don't want to joke that only half the people know. And so we devised small scenes that session, and had something like Gotham Wives, and then one of the names was Enter Parenthesis, Open Parenthesis.
Yes.
Which we thought sounded a bit poncy, so we simplified it to the Parentheticals, which sort of worked because we were doing Armando, which spins off from a story. So brackets, you're aside to the main thing. It sort of made sense what we were doing.
So, could you define what you understand an Armando to be?
I understand it is the default in the long-form course with Hoopla. It is a monologue from which you pull scenes.
Right, okay.
So you get the one-word suggestion, but that inspires a speech instead of scenes directly.
And what was it that drew the group to that?
That is just what we knew.
Oh, right, cool.
Yeah, we had no preference. We've since realised, we don't have to do Armandos. We've done them for a few months and coasted, and we're experimenting at the moment with French braid, which is what the Science of Living Things do, which instead of sweep edits, it's essentially turning up and down the volume of a scene, so you just step forward and speak up and the others drift back. Because we had them at Bracket Racket, which we'll also get to. And we talked about their set ever since because we were so excited by their format. You don't have to do clumsy sweep edits where you run across the stage, which at our venue, the Star of Kings, isn't great because it's a small stage and we're a big group, so you can't really run in front without worrying about bumping your low ceiling or tripping. We're essentially doing... The French braid is... it's essentially Harold without the group games.
Oh, right.
And you always return to those 3 beats.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, but we're trying to make it that the third beat is a bit more chaotic.
Right.
Because the third beat of the Harold is the universes collide, even if it doesn't really make sense. Now, I've always found that interesting because I now know what a Harold is. I can see the strings, I know how the magic trick works. I'm less impressed by a Harold because I know, now it's beat 2, and if I remember, that was the claustrophobic mouse. And so it's just weird that we've ended up essentially doing Harolds, but we're going to put our own spin on them.
Cool.
I don't have anything against Harolds, it's just it takes a lot to impress me, because I am now, every time I see an improv show, I go, I see they pulled that from that quirk in the speech, and that anecdote has now been transformed into...
Is it not possible to still be impressed, even if you understand how the magic is done?
I still laugh.
I still
find what they're doing funny.
Yeah.
It's just, in my head, I'm guessing what comes next.
That's interesting. I've tried doing that when watching shows as kind of a way of getting more practice. So if I'm watching a show and I think, okay, if I was in that and I was listening to that monologue, what would I take?
What was shiny?
Yeah, what was the shiny thing? What would I put in my pocket? It's a good way of sort of practicing.
Yeah, it means you're less active as an audience. Well, it makes you more active as an audience member, but... Does that take you out of it when watching it?
I think actually, I don't know. I think I'm probably more engaged. I don't know. I suppose I'm listening because even if I spotted the shiny thing that I wanted to bring back, you don't always get to bring the shiny thing back. So you still need to listen to the other shiny things that people saw. We should perhaps define what we mean by shiny things.
The shiny thing is the interesting quirk in the speech, or the catchphrase that got the biggest laugh, or an unusual trait of something in an anecdote. Have you not previously described a shiny thing in a episode?
I don't think we have.
Okay.
And also, it's interesting because everybody has their own slight different interpretation of what something is. So, you know...
shiny thing? I thought you meant jewellery. There were no necklaces in that monologue. Bad improv.
You are fired from the improv scene. You are no longer hand in your badge and your gun, which you've got to hold in the right way. Oh, anyway. Visual joke. Not even that funny. So we've got the parentheticals, and aren't there are quite a lot of people in the parentheticals.
We've been, because we're a whole Hoopla class, we've been independently described by two people as the Blazing Squad of improv.
And I very much see you as the Lisa Mafia. I hope you don't take that the wrong way.
As someone who doesn't know music or rap, thank you. I probably was too young for them. I've always been a comedy nerd. I don't really have albums to listen to, like music albums. I've never really seen a band live. Comedy's always been my jam for a long time. So music, I'm aware of these artists. I may not necessarily have realised I'm listening to them.
Yeah, it's interesting. Richard Herring talks about that as well, and how not being particularly into music, but always having those sort of comedy albums and stuff like that. That's another way of... Because I'm very much into my music, and I suppose I don't know, maybe I haven't come to comedy yet.
Oh.
And I've come to improv through a different route. You know.
Well, I mean, improv is essentially comedy jazz.
It's comedy jazz?
Yeah.
Does it have to be comedy?
No. What are they called? A Million Thousand Love Stories, Jules and Heather. That's quite serious. You know, the instinct is to go to comedy. In fact, my instinct was comedy because, having come from sketch, my instinct was get the premise out and the joke out in the first line.
Yeah.
And one of the things that Mike has not ironed out me, or made me aware of, is if you try to be the smartest guy in the room, the funniest guy straight out, then where can they build from? And Liam also pointed out in Armando's, if your monologue is essentially a stand-up bit, you're already doing the funny.
Yes.
Where is your group going to go?
Yes.
So I'm now much more aware that I should just do a more naturalistic, organic opening.
Yes.
I should still specify the premise, but I shouldn't,
Yes.
be wry about the prompt.
Yeah, you don't want to burn through all the material because everyone's going, oh, brilliant, he's done that, done that. Yeah, and I like the permission you get to, to be boring, but truthful. And ironically, the truth is very, very rarely boring.
Yeah, one of the things John Agnew did with us is TJ and Dave's Heat and Weight, which is have an emotion with your scene partner, decide on one, turn to face your scene partner, and just observe what position in the room you are, what body language is, and then from there build the scene. That was quite interesting. I've done that exercise with one of the Parentheticals, Chris, and both times, I think he's instigated it both times, we've ended up as gay lovers who are arguing because one of us has cheated.
Oh, was it the same person that had cheated both times?
No.
Okay, that's probably all right then. Otherwise.
So if we form a double act, that is probably what it would be.
I think that would be very zany. The Parentheticals were created, and you've gone on to start your own night. Was that not a terrifying step?
Well, it came from a logical place, and there's 14 of us, and we're never all going to be in the same room or get to perform that often, so we might as well have our own night where we can give ourselves essentially 2 slots. We do it overtly, covertly even.
Until now.
Yeah. Well, the show just gone is literally us in 2.5 slots because we're also doing the debut of Improdyssey.
Right.
One of which we're performing the night this episode goes out.
What, tonight?
Yeah, the 15th.
So you're going off to do a show after this?
Yeah, I'm going to the Miller.
Rock and roll.
Launchpad.
It's a launchpad tonight.
Yeah.
On a Tuesday?
Yeah, what?
Is it launchpad or... No, it doesn't matter.
Delete that bit. No, it's on a Wednesday, the 15th. You always release shows on a Wednesday.
Oh, I see you were doing that thing where you... Oh. that was an example of the guest being really clever and bamboozling the interviewer, who sometimes adopts a faux naive way of... a naive outlook on life to ask questions and then sometimes is just really naive.
And scene.
I was like, at Launchpad on a Tuesday? What's going on? I mean, I'm already confused enough because it's a bank holiday yesterday, so I don't know what. Anyway.
Let's backtrack.
So, Star of Kings.
Star of Kings, Bracket Racket. We started that because, we wanted to give ourselves 2 slots. We decided it was a bit... Originally the joke was, we are parentheticals, we shall bracket the night, we'll start first and last. We have since dropped that. It's not really a joke anyone picked up on or we drew attention to. So we will perform once in the first half, usually with the Armando, now we'll do the French braid. And then at the end we have an audience jam, except it's competitive and there will always be half and half parentheticals on each side. And the other half is public.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. So you're...
Following the Dr. Goose model of you always need some jam captains to pull in the newbies. Because most of the time the audience at Bracket Racket, and hopefully we'll move beyond this, is our co-workers and friends. And they've never done improv and they just put each other's names in the hats or they think, oh, I can do that, and they come up. It'd be great. For improv to break mainstream in the UK, obviously in Chicago and the States it's big already, we need to attract the non-improv crowd because most shows, and we're aware of this, we're performing to each other.
Yes.
We'll go to the Miller on a Friday, Saturday night, we'll go to Dr. Goose on a Monday, we'll go to Genre Claude on a Sunday. We go to each other's shows because it's a jam.
Yes.
But we also need some people who aren't there who just want to watch.
Yes.
It's like stand-up, but you don't get picked on.
Yes. You know, I'm really interested in how we do grow the audience because, it's fine. And it's perfectly legitimate to perform to other improvisers. But yes, how do we get people who wouldn't necessarily watch improv to come and watch improv?
Yeah, I think it's best if they just accidentally discover it. Like one of the Bracket Rackets, an entire birthday party was upstairs and they decided to come watch the show. So they were like 2/3 of the audience and they stayed for both halves.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, and you can also do the old, if you're in the pub, just beforehand go, if you don't know, there's a show upstairs, it's free, you can come watch. And that gets a few people.
That's cool.
Yeah,
I mean, they're already there.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
it's not like they have to leave the house.
And they don't have to pay.
And they can always leave if they don't like it.
And if during the second half, you notice, it's less people now. But if you convert like 2 people a week from a show and they'll come back, that's great.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. So who or how did you get in contact with the Star of Kings? How was that?
We had performed with PostScript, which is another Chris Mead group that came through Hoopla and stayed together. And they performed with us. No, they had us on at the Star of Kings. And when Charles from the Parentheticals was looking at venues, it's like, well, we've performed here, let's ask. And they gave us 3 shows with our deposit, and then they just haven't returned the deposit because we pulled in a crowd within 2 shows, and we've kept going for the rest of the year.
So they wanted you to pay a deposit? Or?
You pay a deposit, and if you don't bring enough people, they'll give it back or something, or they'll stop the slots.
How much that was?
50 quid.
Right, okay.
Which was a fair deal. Between, again, you divide anything between a big group. So between 14, it was nothing.
Yeah, the weight of numbers, I can see that.
Yeah, even if we drop a few, all costs are split. We're doing the Camden Fringe in August this year, 2016. And 10 people, you split the higher cost and the price of being the programme, you're easy. It's only a few quid each.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah. And we'll probably make it back. Because again, 10 people, each sell 4 tickets, you've broken even.
I'm really getting on board with this large group idea. This is definitely the way
Stick with
forward.
your music, people.
Stick with your music, people, yes.
See, I got your name in.
Which is good, because I very rarely remember. But then it's not about me, it's about the guests. So that's the main thing.
I think for your 100th show, it should be about you.
It's all about me. I mean, I think so anyway. Why do you think I'm on every episode? So
the opposite is true. Sometimes you edit yourself out of the episode, so it's just the guest talking.
well, sometimes if I can just sit there and listen to the guest and I don't say anything, I'm also happy with that. That's also fine.
Yeah, some of them are naturally loquacious, and the episode I last listened to was Angela and Leanne, and obviously they're a double act, so they can just talk amongst themselves.
Yeah. Do you think we could persuade them to do a regular podcast? Because I'd just listen to them talk. It was just brilliant.
I love their character so much. It's one of my new favourite shows, Sandy and Danny.
All right, cool, excellent.
Yeah, I saw them at Dr. Goose, then I saw them at Genre Claude the following weekend. Fantastic format.
Did the format change from Duck Duck Goose to Genre Claude Van Damme?
No, they just did a slightly longer slot.
Oh, right.
So did they explain their format on the show?
Yes, they did.
Okay,
Yes.
so they just did 3 dates instead of 2.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
no change whatsoever.
No, I'm just curious because I'm not trying to stir up rivalry between Duck Duck Goose and Genre Claude Van Damme, but you are the two most regular
Yes.
nights with.
Well, the night I went, it was actually I went with half the Duck Duck Goose team,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it was the jam meets the other jam.
Yeah. How did that play out?
It was good. We enjoyed ourselves a lot, and the thing about that jam was it was a really popular jam. So the second jam was a dozen people plus the acts. It was very difficult to be in.
Yeah.
Because there's so many good people, and everyone should be in once. And,
Yes.
And Genre Claude Van Damme making sure people are in, so they're also in the jam. But it was fun. It was chaos. But I preferred watching the acts that night.
Right. Fair enough.
But
Yeah.
whenever I'm not in a jam, that just encourages me the next day, and the next day was Dr. Goose, so I really threw myself into the jam. So sometimes you have to have a quiet jam to then want to come back.
Yes. No, that makes sense. So yeah, you mentioned being a jam captain at the
Yes.
at Parentheticals, but that's also something you do at Duck Duck Goose. Do you just want to kind of explain what you mean by that?
Yes. What I mean is every jam will have some of the Duck Duck Goose presenters, partly because they want to jam, but also just to shape scenes or to pull on people who haven't been in yet.
Yeah.
You want everyone to leave having a good time and to have looked good. And if you make them look good and give them just one scene, then we've done our job. It's not about us. That was the big transition from going from a audience member of Duck Duck Goose to a host. Was the jam is less about you. There's admin. You've got to make sure that everyone's involved instead of trying to steal every scene.
Yes, that would be awful to go along to a jam anywhere and just
Have the host dominate, yeah. So really, the thing I most enjoy at Duck Duck Goose at the moment, where I feel I shine better, is the 2-person scene, because it's just you and a partner, and nobody's going to tag in.
Yes.
And if one of you has a great idea, you roll with it.
Yes.
So that's where I have the most. Not that the jams aren't fun, and I hit a wall for a while, getting to my head about I need to pull people on. But I've gone through the jam wall and I'm enjoying jams again, but I still think two-handers are where I shine at the moment.
Yes, I understand that. How did you get through your jam wall?
Nothing specific, I just kept doing jams. Just like in a marathon, if you hit the wall, just keep running.
Yeah. I have to say, with jams, I've found that now, that I just kept doing them and they sort of became less painful, and now I even kind of quite enjoy them.
Great, well done.
Not as much as I enjoyed 2-person scenes, but anyway. Okay, brilliant. So, how did you ascend from being an audience member of Duck Duck Goose to being on the hallowed elite?
Well, in between Hoopla courses, there was this horrible month where there was an improv every week.
What?
Yeah.
What?
And I didn't have a job at that point, so I was like, what am I meant to look forward to? Chris Mead had mentioned Dr. Goose was a thing, and so I went along, and then I enjoyed it so much I went back week after week, and they said, oh, you're here, you're good, do you want to be part of the team? And they hired the rest of us, Steph, Amar, Dan. Oh yeah, I invited Dan Luxton, who I previously mentioned, along, and he has since joined the team. So yeah, literally, if you want to be a host of Dr. Goose, turn up every week and be good. They'll help you put out chairs. You help them put out chairs. They'll invite you. Disclaimer, that may not necessarily happen. Please don't try this. But if we expand, we'll think of you.
Are there plans to expand?
It's always tempting, but the fact is, due to sheer geography, most of our presenters live in the south, so they would own the Brixton night. And then I wouldn't get to see them. We love each other so much that we're in a house team, DuckTales, which I'll mention later. I'm so glad we're trying to do this chronologically, else I would definitely forget one of my 3.5 groups. I say half because being a Dr. Goose presenter isn't necessarily a team. You're obviously in a collective, but you're not. Your sole aim isn't to perform.
I mean, but I think it's important to maybe communicate the fact that if you do take part in a Duck Duck Goose jam, or indeed a Parentheticals jam, that there are people looking out for you, because a jam is a terrifying thing.
Oh yeah, it's chaos.
Yeah.
Especially the ones Duck Duck Goose, if they go on second and the night's running a bit long, those tend to suffer. You've got to be really high energy and pull people through.
Yeah.
Like one of our jams, it went on after. I think we finished 10:30 the final show, but yeah, all the scenes were like written off as people were tired and it showed. So all the scenes were written off as like product of drugs or people being drunk or dreams, and that just undermines any premise. It just ends up surreal nonsense.
I thought I'd done the worst improv ever, but I wasn't there that night.
Oh, everyone's done the worst improv ever.
And nobody cares, and it doesn't matter. And I think that's,
It's fleeting. Yeah, I saw something on probably Twitter. It said the best thing about improv scenes is they're over... no, they happen once and then they're gone. And the worst thing about improv scenes is that they happen once and then they're gone.
Yes. So we've got the Parentheticals.
Yes.
And you have a spin-off group from the Parentheticals.
Yes, a few of us decided we'd quite like to do Greek epics, and what this became... Actually, that was discussed in the first AGM as well, who wants to be in the spin-off. What it actually became was a more general narrative show with quests, which was great because not everyone has degrees or knowledge of Greek myths, so it's better to have a more specific idea. So it's no longer genre, but it is narrative and it is a quest. And the premise is we ask for an object, and that becomes the object, and the titular. That becomes the object of the quest. And we have a narrator, and who guides. It's essentially side coaching, narrating. But you also get to pimp people out, in slow motion. They do push-ups. They go on to name 5 other animals that can't jump. And we got Mike on board for that because Charles and I had previously been in DuckTales together. Charles since dropped out because he's in 3 groups total.
Right. And
needs a night off.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you've loved ones, you don't get to see them that often unless they come to your show, and that's a bit of an ego trip. Watch me be brilliant, darling. Yeah, so Charles and I were like, well, we need a narrative coach. Mike is good. Should we get him? So I'm now being coached for Mike for DuckTales, which I'll move on to, and Improdyssey. And it's the most fun ever because we've worked together for a year as the Parentheticals, so we've already got a great chemistry, and it's just learning the form of stories and making them as simple as possible.
Yes.
Like Mike always uses the example, don't do something like you need to get the ring to the Sand King and he'll release the princess from the dragon. Just the story can be as simple as Sam needs a new pair of shoes for prom. you can still have interesting characters he bumps into on the way. You can still have someone who wants to stop him getting shoes. So yeah, at the moment we're just learning narrative. And also, Mike said we're in a unique place because there isn't actually that many single tale narrative. Glitch does it, and he's in Glitch.
Yes.
Ostentatious does dual narrative.
Yes.
Showstoppers does usually a love story.
Yes.
So focusing on one protagonist on a quest in the UK's London improv scene is actually not many people are doing it.
So, how much do you actually structure it? So, if you've got a protagonist, do you have allies and things like that? And
They're key parts of the journey. We don't decide those, but though we have been told there's threshold guardians, like someone who would get you, like a boat driver, would get you from A to B. Our allies, the shadow, which would be like your enemy.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So yeah, we're aware of these archetypes and the roles that we may need to fill, but again, it's completely up to us. As long as we follow a basic story, that's fine.
And how do you manage time-wise?
We're learning how to do it for 15 minutes, and our narrator has a stopwatch.
Ah, right, okay, yes.
Yeah, we're working on nailing the 15-minute story. Then we'll expand it to 20. We've just finished a run of gigs in June. We put ourselves on Bracket Racket. Easy, we run that. I booked us for Duck Duck Goose, and I did actually do an email chain from both sides of the conversation just to prove that it's been booked.
What, you emailed yourself?
Yes.
Hi Brendan, how am I? I'm very well, thank you very much.
I have access to the Duck Duck Goose email, as do we all in the team. And then Launchpad, I emailed Steve Rose saying, oh, Mike's our coach, and he was like, oh yeah, brilliant, there's not enough narrative, so he booked us for 2 consecutive Launchpads.
Oh, that's cool.
Including today, June the 15th. Actually, the best bit is one of these gigs was on my birthday. So I actually get to perform with one of my current favourite teams in one of my favourite improv venues, because the Miller, it has all the shows. It's the closest we've got to a consistent venue in London. Yes. So yeah, my favourite group, my favourite show on my birthday, brilliant. Last birthday, 2015, was a Duck Duck Goose. It's like brilliant. Improv birthdays are the best.
But you are doing improv most nights of the week?
Yes. Improdyssey meets Wednesdays, Thursdays is Parentheticals, and Mondays Duck Duck Goose. And if I go to a show beyond that, that'll probably be genre chord because I work at the weekends.
Right, yes.
Yeah. Other people have outside interests and girlfriends. I don't. I think about... People ask, what do I do during my days when I'm not at work? Usually improv admin.
Right, okay. So, let's talk about the admin side of things, because it's not glamorous, but it is the bit that needs to be done to get the groups going, to keep the groups going.
Yeah, again, going back to the AGM, we've got someone who books rooms and does the finances. We've got someone who books our own gigs. We've got someone who... Charles is the person who books our gigs, but also the guests for Bracket Racket. Right, I'm in charge of social media. We've got half of us have responsibilities within the team, which makes it a lot easier for the people who are more casual to just turn up and have fun. Some of us are taken on, and that's what I do during the day. I'm technically in charge of festival bookings. So I've organised our Camden Fringe slot. Yeah. Yep. I've started doing bookings for Improdyssey, and I also do the social media. And a lot of times, as well as emailing myself, I will tweet at each other. I'll tweet from myself saying, oh, I'm doing this show and I'll do a bad pun, and then the Parentheticals account will disown me.
How do you run the finances? So for the Parentheticals,
yes.
Presumably there's room hire,
coach hire.
Is it just split equally between each
It is split equally. If you're in Improdyssey, that's an extra cost and a separate cost. We've just, after our second AGM, our second in a year and a bit, we decided we'll go for quarterly membership fees. So just pay a lump sum.
Yes.
And then we'll adjust it according to what our costs are.
Right, okay, yes. I think it's interesting to get that. So if people... if you pay for a certain period of time, and then if people don't turn up, it's like they're losing out.
Well, yeah. The great thing about the Parentheticals is we've described it in our AGM as the mothership. It's the umbrella company. You can always return to it. You can leave it. You can be jest in improdyssey. You can perform at Bracket Racket with either.
You mean you're very much the funkadelic of the improv world? Oh, never mind.
Again, not big into music.
So Funkadelic were this big 70s kind of funk band, and there were like 1 million people in them, and they all went off and had their own sort of albums, and it was all under the same umbrella sort of thing.
Well, that's you've actually inadvertently raised a good point about the Parentheticals, and that we don't really crossbreed with other groups.
Ooh,
Charles and Nat from Parentheticals are working on a group with Ellie from Giggle Loop.
Which is called?
Butter Trumpet.
Hey, I've not heard of Butter Trumpet.
They're still experimenting as far as I'm aware.
Right, okay.
Obviously I'm in Duck Duck Goose. Beyond that, we don't really network that much. We don't go to gigs that much. Well, some of us do. I obviously go to gigs. I'm not bragging. I'm not. That's not me being snooty to the others.
Only they were more like me.
Yeah. Why can't they make it their entire life? Yeah, so not everyone has heard the Parentheticals. Not everyone, if I told you all their names, would know them. I have written them down just in case I forget one, because I don't know who would be pissed if I forgot them.
And there are a lot of them.
Yeah, 14, used to be 14, now it's 12. Yeah, it's... we don't cross-pollinate, we don't jam that often. A few of us do, but we're in our own separate circle, essentially.
And is that a deliberate choice, or is that just the way things have worked out?
It's just the way things have worked out, because people have other outside interests.
Wow. That sounds healthy.
Outside interests, yeah, absolutely.
And do they then take inspiration from those outside interests so that they're not just recycling improv into their improv? That was me being slightly sarcastic in the like, yeah, I'd love to have outside interests, but where do they find time? How do they manage to do that?
Oh, I have plenty of time for outside interests, I'm just not interested. In fact, I'm in part of the London Comedy Writers, which is just a group that workshops and reads sketches and sitcoms.
Oh, right, cool.
And since I joined them before I did improv in London, and since I've started improv, I've really written very few sketches, because that need to create is already being sated. Instead of me versus a blank page, it's me with a bunch of friends creating something organically that exists in the moment. You can't go back to sketches. And actually, one of our Parentheticals, Kate, is on a comedy writing course and does still write sketches.
Yeah.
And a few of us did at one point try to work on a sketch show. Oh no, actually we did a sketch slot at the Pretty Faces gig.
Oh yeah.
In the Betsy Trotwood on the same night that the other Parentheticals were performing at Launchpad. One of the advantages of a big group, you can literally be in two places at once.
I mean, you're very much like Osric Tentacles in that respect.
Obviously, I'm going to have to ask you to explain.
They were a band that had had so many members over the years that had come and gone that they could legitimately play two gigs at separate places at the same time, because they... That has become the game of the podcast, is me now making music.
That's the shiny thing.
That's my shiny thing. Yeah. Cool. You know, it's interesting. It's interesting what you say about how the Parentheticals, you don't see them in lots of other groups, and although it's just the way things have worked out, it would be interesting if that were a choice.
Oh no, it's not deliberate at all.
No.
We're not saying, oh, we're not good enough, or that, or we don't like them.
No, but it's just like, it's something I find exciting when I see a group, and much as I love everyone on the improv scene, they all by and large are universally lovely. Yes. But I've seen that person. I haven't seen them in this combination, but I've seen that person before. But then when you see a whole group and you've never seen any of those people before, I find that really exciting.
It's amazing, yeah. I mean, it doesn't happen often because Duck Duck Goose has literally every act. So I have seen most people in more than one group.
Yes. And that's fair enough.
Yeah. Don't know their names, but I've seen them.
Yeah, and people shouldn't have to be exclusive to one group, but it's just if that were a specific decision.
No, it's just time commitments.
Yeah.
There's only so much energy they have from working 9 to 5.
Yes. Cool. So you tried sketches at the Pretty Things.
Pretty Faces.
Yes, good. So you tried sketches at the Pretty Faces.
Yes.
Was that a successful experiment, or did you learn anything from it?
Well, it came about because... actually, I don't remember. It came about because we'd seen the guy behind the show, Andrew, and he asked whether we wanted to do sketches, and we'd never done sketches as a group before, so we literally cobbled something together in a month.
Right.
And afterwards, we didn't really do it because, I think, mainly because of improdyssey.
Right.
And it would have been another night we'd have to take up.
Yes.
To meet, and improv's our jam at the moment.
Yes. No, that sounds fair enough. And of course, the Pretty Things are an obscure...
The Pretty Faces.
Yeah, but the Pretty Things are an obscure 70s rock band, so in a way, no, it was rubbish. I'm trying to retcon it into being good. So, yes, okay, well, we've mentioned Duck Duck Tales a few times.
Yes.
Please explain Duck Duck Tales.
Sure. One of the acts that was brought over because of improv journeyman Mark Tyndall. Ding, ding, ding! Wah! He said the thing. Wah! He said the thing. I have also written down all the members of Dr. Goose, just in case I forget them. One of the people he brought over from Austin, the Hideout Theatre, was... Oh, what is it called? It was a Choose Your Own Adventure format, but they couldn't legally call it that, so they called it something else, which currently eludes me. Right,
okay. So, who devised the original version of the Duck Tales format in America?
Peter Rogers and Lindsay McGowan at the Hideout Theatre devised it.
Cool.
They performed it Dr. Goose with some of our team and people we drafted in, so Mike Hutchison, Fran Reed, Arfie Mansfield, and they performed it and enjoyed it, and they were like, well, this should be a thing. So we decided, we'll do it as the presenters of Dr. Goose, which at this point is 7, but only 6 of us wanted to do it. And it's like, well, let's get some more people who we like working with. So we got Arfie, we got Ella Sims, and we got Mike in as coach. And Mike ended up narrator through a fluke, but he'll since transfer that power to Arfie and I.
Ah.
The great thing about being coached by Mike in 2 groups is he will do a game with improdyssey, and then 2 weeks later he'll do it with Duck Duck Tales, and I'm like, well, I know a few tricks here. Doesn't always work out, but I do have a slight advantage.
It is sometimes nice to be really good at the game and just pick it up straight away.
Yeah. And I have done the narrator role. For improdyssey, I will do the narrator role. None of us would say it's our favourite thing, but it's a necessary point of our format that we have instigated.
It's interesting that both of those sort of spin-offs have both got a narrator.
Yes.
I don't think is that common.
Oh no, well for the Choose Your Own Adventure it's necessary because you do need to guide the audience to say, alright, they've thrown up 2 things, should they kill their mum or should they save a cat? I should explain the format.
Save a cat would be... Anyway, go on, yeah, explain the format.
I think Save the Cat is a narrative book Mike recommended for us.
Yes, it is. Save the Cat, yes.
Yeah, an
yes.
unwitting reference there. Wasn't trying to be clever, which is what Mike told me to. Duck Duck Tales is a genre-led Choose Your Own Adventure. So we get a genre from the audience. We also get a title.
Film noir.
And Mike says in his opening gambit, not film noir.
Oh, I love film noir. I got into improv for film noir and everyone's...
I mean, I like it as well. I'm currently working on a set of scripts that I hope to cast some improvisers in, and it is a film noir.
Wow.
And it's sort of like I'm trolling the community who don't want to do film noir, and I'm going to invite them to be in a film noir. So yeah, we get a title, we get a genre. The first 3 shows ended up being a sci-fi for some reason.
Yes.
But Mike would always get a hybrid, so it was sci-fi buddy cop and sci-fi Bollywood.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Actually, that's really interesting, getting the 2 ideas and then putting them together, because then you've got, I suppose it's a bigger pools to draw from and you create something original because you're putting 2 things that don't necessarily go together.
Yes, it's also very difficult because the having to fulfill a title in a genre, let alone 2 genres, is exceptionally difficult.
Yes.
Because the title throws up a quest, and that's a 3rd element, whereas Improdyssey is, this show is about this quest for this thing. And the fact that DuckTales is a choose-your-own adventure makes it so much more harder, because you organically, or else Mike will have to force a choice, you organically have to throw up some crossroads where something could happen, or something equally interesting could happen.
And much like a choose-your-own-adventure book, you can cheat.
How can you cheat at a...
By keeping your finger in page 299.
Oh, yes, absolutely. If someone dies, we will go back to last choice. And in the last few shows, it's always been Arthur who's instigated. He's a smart player. He can throw the narrative ball gently over to the next field, if that's not a confusing metaphor. Instead of going, let's take the necklace to the Sand King to release the Princess of the Dragon, he'll go, oh, that book is in the library. And so you know, okay, the narrator needs to say, the next scene is the library.
Right, yes.
So he does subtle moves like that. But in this example, he is often the one to kill people, so we go back to a choice.
So, when you say that being the narrator isn't necessarily your favourite role,
Yes.
is there a way you can prepare? How do you learn to be a good narrator, apart from just looking out for those choices? Or is that it?
We've just prepared by doing so many shows and rehearsals.
Yeah.
And being taught the story structure. Yeah, like anything, it comes through practice. You can just watch films and see the story structure. I've not done any big preparation. Tips, I would say, just minimal. You don't want to set what the initiation is at the beginning. You don't want to say 2 people called Sarah and John in a factory in the 18th century knitting, because then there's nothing to discover.
Right, yes.
It's much harder to come up organically with a game if you already know your physical action, your name, your location. So I set it minimally location and names, or relationships.
Right.
And they should always be friends. That's what improvisers have been taught. They must be friends.
Yes.
Or else it's just too many questions.
Yes. Yes. Cool. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Yes, that sounds great. Okay, the big final question, okay. Improv's great, isn't it? That's not the question.
That one's rhetorical.
That's a
because we
rhetorical
all know, if you're listening to the show, it's bloody
If
fantastic.
you've listened this far and you don't like improv, brilliant, carry on. Mainly going to be improv from now on, but anyway.
From now on, what
From
were the
now
other
on.
episodes about? 70s bands.
I just meant that if you were listening to this podcast thinking, well, this is all very well, but I really want to hear Brendan talk about something that isn't improv, it's still going to be improv for the rest of it.
Yeah, or comedy.
Or comedy. Okay, so, looking to the future, for either you or the improv scene in London, what would you like the future to hold? Where do you want to go? Who do you want to be? What do you want the improv London scene to look like?
Well, I have actually written some of this down on my sheet as well.
Hurrah!
I think Camden Fringe this year, either with Improdyssey or Parentheticals, you've got to do Edinburgh now. A lot of acts are going up. RH have done it a bunch of times. A group I saw last night, Running Amok, from King's College London, are going up after being together for 2 years. Glitch are going up for the first time in 2016. That just sounds... You lose a lot of money, you lose a lot of sleep, you go insane, but it just sounds brilliant. I've been up as a spectator, but to do the full 3 weeks... And you probably necessarily wouldn't, because with such a big team, you would probably swap in and out. But doing a show every day, that's... Recently, 2 weeks running, I've done 3 gigs in 4 days each week, and that's great. That's the dream. I mean, we're not being paid for it, but it's so much fun when a show goes well. And you're surrounded by your mates afterwards to chat. So definitely Edinburgh. I was reading Katie Schute's blog, and she said a great thing that don't wait to be asked to do something, then not necessarily thinking of you, just ask directly. And so she mentioned specifically the asking to be in the Improvathon, which is the 50-hour improv marathon and some people performed the whole 2.5 days. And I saw just a single hour of it this year, and that looked like so much fun that I'd love to be in that. So in a few years, maybe even next year, just early on, she said, email early in the year just to see when the dates are, and then maybe try and get in.
Cool.
Because that would be the ultimate. At the end of, I'm aware at the end of the 2.5 days, you're not doing great improv, you're sleep deprived, everything will be nonsense. But it looks like so much fun. The people directing it, the guys behind Showstoppers, they give you your initiation at the beginning of the scene. They say, oh, and when the show I saw, Poirot is talking to, what's his name? Poirot is talking to Alfred in the catering cart whilst the femme fatale tries to hide. And so instantly you know what you're doing, and it's really well stretched, and it looks like so much fun. And the big names in it, Ruth Bratt and Justin Brett and Pippa Evans and Carrie Lloyd, just like to just share a stage with them would be great.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for having me.
That was great. That was perfect. That was really cool.
Cheers.
I made this.
That's improv!